Hello and welcome to everyone watching this online event. Although we sadly can't meet in person in Frankfurt at the annual book fair, we are thrilled to still be able to connect with many people around the world through this author event. I'm Caroline and work for Impress Books and in Pretty of Untold Publishing, which is a small independent publisher of fiction and non-fiction. I am joined today by Karen Webb, who has recently published her debut title, A Stranger in Paris. It is the first in a three-part memoir series diving into French life and what it means to start a new life abroad when love gets in the way of your plans. As well as discussing Karen's books in detail and uncover little secrets, we will also go through what it takes to write a good memoir, as I believe she's the expert in that topic. And then to conclude, we will go through a quick fire Q&A to get to know Karen even better. Do you have anything else to add? Did I pay justice to your book, Karen?
Hi, thank you for inviting me, Caroline.
Okay.
Nice to talk to a French lady in England from an English one in France.
Yes, that's so because I am half French and half British, and Karen is now in France, following
trying to apply to be French in order to stay.
Oh yes, you better sort that out soon, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So, without further ado, let's get started. And with my first question, as your characters are based on real people, did you contact them beforehand to make sure that everything was okay?
No, I didn't contact anyone because I didn't, initially when I wrote the book, I had no intention of showing it to anyone. It was written for me as an exercise on my creative writing course that I was doing at the time with Lancaster University. And it was based on diaries and memories, and I started writing and started enjoying it, and I started to write between the lessons just as fun and relaxation. And so I put everything in without really worrying about who was going to read it, because I wasn't actually even going to show my tutor. So initially it had the real names as well as the real story. Modified since, but no, I didn't ask anyone to begin with.
Okay. And so for this confidentiality reasons, how did you choose new names for your characters? Was it like a struggle to imagine and come up with?
Well, once the book was accepted for publication, I started to ask the people that were in the book, or most of the people that I could trace, if it was okay to write about them. And I asked if they wanted to keep their real name or if they wanted to have a fictitious name. So it was there was a varying response to that. So a lot of people said, no, definitely fictitious name. And some people said, oh, to hell with it, you can put my real name. So that was quite fun. And then for the fictitious names, I had great help from two French writers, a couple called Jacques Baudouin and Martine Méret, who are, one writes crime and the other historical fiction. And they helped me choose the right names and the right family names that gave an indication as to the character of the person and the period that they were born in and their sort of social status as well, because it's quite important. Well, you'll probably know this better than me, but French names can often give away a lot about a person and their background. So I had a lot of help choosing the fictitious names.
That's amazing to know. Yes, you wouldn't imagine that like a little name in a book would make so much difference depending on the social and stuff.
Yeah, the year that the person was born, or the part of France even. So it was really interesting, and we had a lot of fun doing that. It was great.
Yeah, I imagine. Did you hide any secrets in your book that only a few people were able to find out about?
No, because it was all a secret. Everything was a secret. The whole book was one big secret. So it's all there's the only code in there. I had a little code with the people I love and my family, in that they all kept their real names. So they are all referred to by their actual names. So there's a kind of little code there.
Oh, okay, interesting. So at the moment, everyone is talking about Emily in Paris. And we have discussed together that you are the real Emily in Paris.
Emily in
Paris.
Paris.
Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, I only seen a few clips of Emily in Paris, but I'm going to watch it. But friends have seen it and contacted me with regards to the book, and they have all said, "My God, the real Emily in Paris is your story," because to Emily, fictitious Emily obviously has quite a privileged life in Paris, and it's a very romantic look at the city. And I think when I was writing the book, what I wanted to do, also in comparison to books such as Peter Mail and The Year in Provence, I wanted to show what happens when you arrive in Paris without any money or without a job or without anything, and the other side to the glamorous image of Paris that you so often see in films and in books, and or in France in general. So sort of the antidote to either renovating a house but having substantial funds to do so, or arriving in Paris for a glamorous job, or just really sort of round the back of the Eiffel Tower, the darker side of the cities. You know? So that was and that was the way it was too. That was the way I lived Paris at the time, and most of my friends too. We were struggling and trying to find jobs however we could, and we didn't have such a glamorous life as Emily, unfortunately, but
So here we go. If you in the audience people have watched Emily in Paris, now if you want a real version, an honest story about what it is to live in Paris as a young adult, you know what to do. So if your book was adapted to into a movie, who would play your character and other characters, for example?
I don't know. I think my daughter would be quite good, because we look really similar, but I don't think she'd want to do that at all. So I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Okay, no problem. Have a little think.
Have a little think about that.
So which scene is your favourite in the book, but also because it happened in real life? I mean, what is your favourite moment, I guess?
I think my favourite scene is the one which propelled me to actually write the story. It was the first one that popped into my head, and it was this memory of standing on windswept, rainy Aberystwyth station in Wales, surrounded by my university friends who were all from the overseas department, and standing on this cold, miserable station and waiting for my train, which was called a Sprinter, to chug in and take me off on my adventures. And I was surrounded by a group of men who were mostly from, at the time, Pakistan, India, Botswana, Iraq. I had a really international group of friends, and they were all saying to me, "Don't go, you're crazy. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why are you leaving university and heading off on this mad adventure and following this French guy who may not be such a good idea. This may not be such a good idea." So I think it was that scene of seeing all these exotic costumes and almost national dress that they wore that day to come to the station to wave me off, and that was the first scene. So that's my favorite, because I can see that one very visually.
I can also picture it myself, so it's amazing. Yeah. And in country, what was the section that was the hardest to write for you?
The section that was the hardest to write was the section where, when I was first out in Paris, my grandmother, who I was very, very close to, who was like my mother to me really, died when I was first out in Paris. And that was really hard to write about, even many years later. And so quite a few tears when I wrote that particular part of the book, but and the flashbacks to those scenes. The comic scenes, obviously there's a lot of comic scenes in, but there are the sadder ones were the harder ones to write.
Did you dedicate your book to your gran? I think
yes, I did. Yeah, I did.
Oh, that's amazing. It's here for people joining us.
For gran, yeah.
Gran. It's amazing.
Yeah. I think that's always the difficult thing when you go abroad, to when you have, obviously your home life carries on with all the things that are happening. So obviously losing people sadly sometimes, and being far away, a bit like with COVID now, but people being separated and not together. And just at that time, just for many reasons, I wasn't there, and I felt really guilty about that. So so the book was a little homage, and that was the harder bit to write.
Beautiful. And which song could go with your books?
Well.
What songs with your book?
Well, I think quite a lot of French music would work quite well. A lot of the music that I was listening to for the first time. And I think French music is quite underrated. I like French music a lot. And I think that was all part of it for me, to arrive in Paris and hear groups and musicians on the radio that I'd never heard of before. And probably the song that makes me feel quite happy and reminds me of that period. It was slightly later. I think the song came out in 1991 and the book set in 1989. But I would say something like Mylène Farmer, Les Désenchantés, if you know that song, or a lot of French music, I think.
Yes, okay. So people, if you're reading the book, you can have a playlist in the background to put you into the character and into like French life. Have you had any doubts whilst writing your book because it was your life? Did you like ever feel like who's going to be interested in my life or something like that?
I didn't have any doubts when I was actually writing it, because I was only writing it for myself for fun, and I thought maybe maybe my children will read it one day. Or I think the only doubts I had was when I met Richard Willis, the publisher, who wanted to actually print it, and then I had a lot of doubts as to who would want to read it and why they would find any of that interesting, and also not just doubts but a slight feeling of terror that your diary is open on the public square, for everyone to have a look at and see your deepest, most inner feelings, and all the silly things that you did, and the mistakes that you made, and everything that happened, because it was really quite intensely personal. So that was more of a feeling of fear. But actually writing it, I just enjoyed it. I locked myself away for a year and wrote it, and just felt that I'd gone back in a TARDIS to 1989 and pre-internet, pre-Eurostar, being able to have everything that you want that's English in France, and it was really good fun to write.
And so did you discuss with your family for the same reason? Because like mummy is writing about like her love life when she was younger.
Before it was published, yes, I asked my daughter to read it. My son refused, but my daughter read it, and she said that she had to read it in little chunks in order to because she was so apprehensive as to what the next bit was about. And of course most of the things she didn't know had happened either. So yeah, I asked her to read it first, and she gave her seal of approval, having taken several months to get through it, because she said she couldn't bear to do it all at one go. So that was quite funny.
How many half or unfinished novels do you currently have?
Well, 2. So the beginning of a young adult fiction book, which I'm writing, and also a book which has been on the back burner for probably about 10 years that I've been writing, which is which I intend to finish once this series is finished, but that I want to go back to.
That's amazing. We're looking forward to that. And how do you organise your writing time between these books and between like your work, and how do you manage that?
Well, Stranger in Paris was mostly written because I had a year off. I took a year off work, and I did the MA in creative writing with Lancaster University, and I had a lot of time just to write. So that was amazing, and I could lock myself away, and I didn't really go out very much, and I just spent the whole year writing and doing the course. So that was fantastic. But then I had to go back to work, to my normal job, so it was a lot more difficult. So what I did in the end was take writing holidays, where I would go to London or to Paris, or I went to Norwich at one point, and spent a lot of time just sitting in local libraries writing 3 or 4 hours a day, or in really, really great coffee shops or anywhere that I could find. So most of A Stranger in Paris was written in the Arts Centre in Norwich, where my son was studying dance at the time. And yeah, very happy memories of sitting there and eating lots of carrot cake and drinking milky coffee. And
that's the dream. That's the dream. And did your style like evolve in between writing the first installment and now writing the sequel?
Probably, because I think as I got into it more, that some of the deeper parts of the story and some of the sadder things that happened, I wanted to do justice to as well. So as the book starts out on a fairly comic note, but by book 2, it deals with some quite dark subjects. So there's comedy as well as probably a more intense type of portrayal of what actually happened. So I think, but that's more the course of events rather than a conscious choice to change style.
Okay, good to know. And what is the best advice you have received as an author and writer?
Best advice is to take yourself seriously as a writer, and just to say, I am a writer and I'm going to write, because I think a lot of people, especially friends and family, can sometimes think that you're wasting time, or you're not spending time with them, or you're in your own little world messing around, but maybe you could be doing something better, like washing, or the ironing, or the gardening. So just to take yourself seriously, and to give yourself an allocated time where you're left in peace to actually concentrate and get into your story.
That seems quite a reasonable advice, I think. But in contrary, what is the worst advice that you've ever been given?
Well, I think the worst advice that I was ever given was on my MA course, when I had a tutor who told me, you must never deal with more than 5 characters in a novel. And obviously, if you're writing a memoir, that's pretty tricky, because there are more than 5 characters. Yes, or in Game of Thrones, perhaps, which I'm reading at the moment. I think he did quite well with more than 5 characters. I think that's probably the worst piece of advice. And I think at the end of the day, you can't write to keep somebody else happy. You have to just write your story and see what happens.
Beautiful way to end my first round of questions. And now I would like to have a little quick fire Q&A session where I ask you very, very brief questions. You have to choose between 2 things usually. Don't think too much, just answer spontaneously. Okay?
Okay.
The book you have read the most?
Brideshead Revisited.
The book you always recommend to people?
Any Human Heart, William Boyd.
The book you wish you had written?
One Day, David Nichols.
Buying books online or in store?
In store, if I can.
Paperback or hardback?
Either.
The latest book you have bought?
Diana Gabaldon, I can never pronounce it, which is the second in the Outlander series, which I'm really enjoying. Love Outlander.
Great. The weirdest thing you have used as a bookmark?
A sock.
Wow. Can you? I need background. Sorry, I need background.
Just because usually I read in bed a lot before I go to sleep, so anything that happens to be next to the bed.
Why not? Why not? Name the first 3 books that come to your mind.
Emily Bronte, Wuthering Heights, Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice, and The End of the Affair, Graham Greene.
Good. Audiobook, yes or no?
Definitely. Anytime I can listen to an audiobook in the car, there's one on.
Movie or book first?
Book. Although there are some very good interpretations of some of my favourite books. The English Patient, wonderful. And The End of the Affair, which we've just mentioned. Amazing film.
What is one of your bad habits with books?
Reading in the bath and dropping it. And
have you ever?
Many times. Yeah, I get told off by my daughter. I'm not allowed to borrow her
off after?
Yes, on the radiator, and then they swell. So that's terrible. Oh, I know. I love reading in the bath.
Do you read in English or in French?
Usually in English, but recently I've started to make a conscious effort to read in French.
Good. What is your favourite genre of books?
Literary fiction.
A favourite reading snack?
Ooh, favourite reading snack? A big bar of Cadbury's chocolate.
Ooh, I agree. How many books do you read every year?
Probably one a week. Probably one for every week, but sadly not as many as I'd like to with work. But if we count listening to the audiobooks as well, you can double that. But as many as I can.
A good way. What is your favourite place to read?
Apart from the bath, my favourite place, in bed before I go to sleep, or in the morning in the bath. anywhere I can, even in a doctor's waiting room, or anywhere I happen to have to wait, on the train, anywhere where you're killing time is my favourite time to read a book.
Always have a book with you, always.
Always a book, yes. Which is why they don't stay very neat and tidy.
Which late author would you like to meet?
C.S. Lewis, who I love, the Narnia series, who helped me survive childhood. I read those books so many times. I would love to have met C.S. Lewis.
That's beautiful. Okay, now on to more funky questions. Red, rosé, or white wine?
Red.
Good, with cheese.
With cheese.
And then finally, croissant or pain au chocolat?
Pain au chocolat. Although if you live down in the southwest of France, you'd have to say chocolatine.
But because you started your journey in France, in Paris,
I can't say that. No, it will be pain au chocolat till the end of my days. It will be pain au chocolat. And but if I was given the choice, I would say chausson aux pommes.
Oh, that's a good one as well. Yes, and unfortunately, we don't have these in the UK, or not really good ones.
No, and actually not in the southwest of France very much either. It's a real Parisian thing.
Well, we have a business to do, Karen. I think
we do. We can make
bring this lovely snack to our dear audience, I think. Okay, well, thank you so much, Karen, for answering those questions.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you. Thank you.
We are very much looking forward to the sequel to A Stranger in Paris. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. We will definitely link Karen's book in the description below for any curious minds. And yes, if you want to know more about the real Emily in Paris, just buy the book.
Yeah.